Welcome back to the Elise Surkov podcast, where we help women thrive unapologetically from the inside out. All right, I am going to just get super vulnerable on this episode and say that I suck at this, but it's something that I am really actively working on, and that is setting boundaries/priorities. And why is this so important right now? Okay, I did a community call in our FFWE group for the women in our program, and I talked about the importance of setting boundaries in this stage of life. So, chances are, if you're anything like me, and I'm 46, I got 3 kids, you probably just kind of like went with what needed to be done as your kids were littles, and then, toddlers, and then, in school age, and then teens, and so on and so forth. So, like, for example, when I had babies and they needed to be fed, I breastfed whenever I needed to. It wasn't like I was like, oh, mommy can't feed you now because I need to get more sleep. Like, that wasn't an option, right? We fed throughout the night. We fed when it was inconvenient. I remember, stopping at Bed Bath and Beyond and sitting on a toilet seat that was like a demo to feed a kid. So we did what we had to do, and we didn't really understand what boundaries were. But now in today's world of 2025, every fucking person's talking about boundaries, and we're like, what the fuck? So the the reality is, you probably had a priority that you self-sacrificed at some time because you felt you had to. So like me, I maybe had to sacrifice sleep because I was feeding a baby, or maybe I didn't have a good gym workout because my kid was crying. I remember when my daughter was 9 weeks old, I started sneaking her into the gym. She had to be 3 months. She was tiny. So I was like, no, she's just small. But until then, I used to like take her in the bucket and like put her beside the treadmill. This is my stupid days of, doing excess cardio and running nonstop. And I would like literally put her bucket beside the treadmill, and I would run and run and run and run. So I was like, hey, I am sacrificing a shower because I want to get a gym workout in. So I would like feed her, put her in the bucket, go for a run on the treadmill, and then she'd like wake up, and then I would like leave, and that would be it for the day. No shower, probably skipped a meal or two, and that'd be it. But then over time, we kind of start to get our independence back a little bit, right? And so now, late 40s for a lot of our women in our community, 50s, 60s, our priorities have changed. We are not chasing toddlers. Our kids don't need us in the same way. Maybe we never had kids. Maybe our kids are grown out of the house. We're empty nesters. And all of a sudden, we are still acting as though we're self-sacrificing because it's become normal, because it's what we were raised to do, and it's what we've done to what we feel are going to be maybe a good mother, a good wife, a good human. And then what happens is you start perimenopause, your hormones start to change, and then you start to question every fucking thing in your life. And you wonder, who the fuck am I? Because you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself, and you think, what happened to me? And so this is where we have to really slow everything down and set some real boundaries. And I know for me, I've been in therapy for over 10 years, and my therapist has always said to me that I have no boundaries in my life. And it's something that I've really started working on over the last 12 months with my therapist, is like, how do I set boundaries as a mom, as a CEO, as a wife? Who do I put first when, right? Like, what is the greater good here? How do I do it? And I see this with our clients too. When they come in, they have no boundaries. A lot of women are like, I'll ask them on a call, like, why is this the right time for you to join our program? And they say to me, because it's finally my time. I spent the last 52 years self-sacrificing for everyone and not everyone around me. And now it's my time. And I'm like, well, that's horrible, because I don't want my daughter growing up thinking she has to self-sacrifice until her 50s. I don't want that. I want every single woman out there, little girl growing into a woman, to understand that she doesn't need to lose part of her identity in order to give to others. And that's really hard if you have no boundaries, or, as I like to call them, priorities, right? So for me, when I started having kids, it was really important to me to continue to go to the gym. I really enjoyed strength training. I liked the mental release from it, and I liked the challenge. And so when I got pregnant with my daughter, Albert and I really sat down and was like, hey, here's the things that we're not going to compromise on. And for me, I was like, I need to go to the gym. And he was like, I need to play hockey. And so those were the things, he'd go, I joke, when I had my son, the night I came home from the hospital, keep in mind, my daughter's like 2 and I have a newborn, and Albert went to hockey because it was playoffs. And I joke and I'm like, oh my God, I'm home alone now with like 2 babies. But that was really important to him. It was like, it's playoffs. And he was spending the last 48 hours, with my daughter doing all the things, getting everything ready so that I can come home with my son. So I get it. Like, you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. But really, that was so important to him. And if you're a big hockey fan and you understand hockey, like, it was playoffs, right? Team needed him. So he didn't want, and he was coming back at night, and it wasn't like I was sleeping. It was totally fine. But I do like to make him feel bad about it. So we'll just leave that as is. However, it was a priority. And so another thing that I see happening in our mid 40s, 50s shift is, like, maybe your kids are going to bed later and later. And so now your bedtime's getting later and later, and you might have had that downtime. Maybe you put your kids to bed at 8 or 9, and then you and your partner could sit down for a couple hours and have some alone time. That fucking doesn't happen anymore, right? Like, Albert and I very rarely are home alone at the same time, let alone home with access to the TV, right? Like, our kids take over everything. So at this stage right now, my youngest is going to be 12 in April. Okay. So I got a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 17-year-old. All three of them go to bed later than me. And that is something that was really hard for me to do. But you know what? That was the very first boundary I set. Mom is getting into bed at 9. And it's not necessarily I'm falling asleep, but I needed to shut down. I don't want anyone talking to me, because if you have teenagers, they only talk to you after 9 or 10 p.m. But I also needed my own downtime. I wanted to, watch TV, read a book, be in my bed alone, just like decompress from the day. So having to go from saying goodnight to my kids, kissing them goodnight, to then saying, okay, goodnight, like, talk to you later. Have a good night. See you in the morning. Like, make sure you go to bed, was really hard for me, but that's a boundary I had to set. Had to set boundaries with friends as well over the years, as life got really lifey and I had to manage diabetes and running a full-time business with a full-time team, which is I have the best fucking team, by the way. But, we have a team of like 9 to 10 of us on the team. That is like full time. I don't necessarily have the bandwidth for friendships that are superficial. And every friend that I have close to me is a really deep rooted friend with a really deep rooted connection. And I don't have a lot of them because I don't have room for that superficial level. I used to, and that was great, but I don't. And it's hard, but that's the season of life I am. That's a boundary. When I go out with friends, I will say, hey, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to take my own car. I'm going to Uber home because I'm going to bed, because that's a boundary. I want to make sure that I get enough sleep, because it's important for me that I have optimal functioning every single day. Why? Because I run a team, because I manage diabetes overnight, and I need to manage my own bandwidth as well. That's a boundary. So right now you might be looking in the mirror and thinking, I don't know where she went. You might not recognize yourself because your body's changed. You might not recognize yourself because your face has changed. You not have, maybe you're not got more gray hairs, the wrinkles, all the things that you look in the mirror and you're like, who is this woman? Maybe your clothes don't fit anymore. Maybe what used to give you joy doesn't, and you're lacking motivation. And when you look in the mirror, you see a shell of a woman that you used to be. That is you crying desperately to set some boundaries. That's going to start with prioritizing yourself. What do you need in order to make those changes? It might be, hey, you've got to invest in yourself. And that's what our program is about. Our 90-day for function hormonal renewal has guaranteed results, 100%. So that at the end of the 90 days, if you don't, see changes, I will refund you, because that's how fucking serious we are when it comes to making yourself a priority. We change lives. You might need something like that. You might need to reconnect with a friend. You might need to make time to go to the gym. You might have to leave that shitty relationship that you're in, or cut off ties with friends or family that's holding you back. But whatever it is you, that inner child in you, crying for boundaries. And it's also, I see this with women who are servicing their children their whole life and then continue to service their husband into their 50s and 60s. And they say to me, well, my husband, and I'm like, well, okay, put your husband aside. Like, what do you want? And they're like, well, I want to do this, but my husband wants to do that. I'm like, well, but like, why? You can do whatever you want, girl. Like, you're your own fucking person. Live unapologetically. Do what you want to do. So you might have to really take some time here, pen, paper, sit down, deep thoughts here, and figure out where you need to start, and then set boundaries around that. So for example, if you're like, I need to go to the gym, I need to start strength training, then you're going to have to set some boundaries around day to day what that's going to look like. You're going to have to make the time to go and not let excuses take over. It's too dark. It's too cold. I'm, too busy with work. My husband needs me. My kids need me. No, you fucking prioritize that shit. That's setting a boundary right there. That is your self-love taking over and keeping the promises that you make to yourself. It's making yourself a priority. And I hear this, and it's bullshit, but I hear it every day when women say to me, I know I need to make myself a priority, but there's no buts. Because the reality is, and I've seen this too, you're no use to anyone if you're dead. And I know that's going to sound really extreme, but for the woman who doesn't recognize herself and is just spiraling into that negative health and negative mindset, what do you think is going to happen? You think you have endless time? And women especially have the higher risks of cardiovascular diseases, strokes, heart attacks, because we're dropping estrogen. You might not have the education and support to think about HRT or supplements to help boost that estrogen. And then what's going to happen? You're still servicing nobody, especially when you're not here. I know that's going to sound really harsh, but I've seen it. And I've had many conversations with women and then had the same conversation a year or two later where they are worse off mentally, physically, health risk wise, because they didn't think that they truly deserved to be a priority in your life. So I like to say the best time to start was yesterday, but the second best time to start is right fucking now. So I encourage you to sit down and think about one thing that you need to start doing, to start changing who you see in that mirror. Make yourself a priority for real, and then teach everyone around you that you mean business, and that is a boundary as well. If you need help with this, please shoot me a message. I'm going to leave all my links below. I want to hear from you. I want to help you more than anything, and I know we can. So go ahead and reach out to me and I will reach back to you. And if you want to watch this on YouTube, go ahead, check out my YouTube channel. All the links are below. Until the next time.